My father took a notion for us to move. This was quoted from Martin Walker, a time a 99-year-old man retelling his memories of childhood for the log cabin paper. But what kind of notion does it take for a father to move his family barely half a dozen miles in 1907? Especially a father who helped found one of the most prominent black settlements at the time, right above Cadron Creek. Well, it's not as unique as you think, because all his peers seem to do the same. In 1880, the population of Walker Township was of 388 people, with the black population a steady 123. The next 20 years, the population would boost over 100 plus people, but the black population itself would drop. So, the question is why? Why did black landowners leave Walker Township? Well, with the research I've done, I believe that the combination of degrading racial relations in the area and economic disarming communities in Arkansas after 1880 resulted in this departure. When researching into this subject, my historiography really started with Harold W. Cruz and Dr. Gordon Morgan, a fellow Arkansan, and that became the first studies of real rural black history. From there, in the next 30, 20 years, Dr. Michael Dugan, Dr. Quoined, and Dr. Jeannie M. Wayne all kind of mentioned the great towns that became and popped up, but only in passing when writing their studies on Arkansas history. The real beef of my historiography comes from these three figures. Dr. James Lowen, who really brought sundown towns into the public eye in history. Elliot Jasmine, who followed up with coining the term and terminology that's used in my research called racial cleansing. And then Dr. Guy Lancaster, who followed up with talking about Arkansas racial cleansing. My research contributes to this field as it focuses on a much smaller and specific area of Twin Groves, Arkansas, and reports on its relationship with racial cleansing, while fixing some mistakes in regards to these doctors' research on what happened in that area, and names, dates, events, and exactly what took place. Before I go into my research, I want to talk about a little bit quickly of what racial cleansing is. And to put it in its very bare bones definitions for you guys, it is both an act of deportation or expulsion, and most importantly, a very American definition, focusing on race rather than ethnicity. And it's not always encouraged by national leaders, the dominant racial or ethnic community, or even the city and town in question, which is why events like night ridings, white masking, and Ku Kluxing came in popularity. So, in doing this research, we will focus on 4 main events through a timeline of 20 years. And right before we get into it, I need you guys to know where we are, because not everyone like me has spent 2 years looking at Walker Township on a map. So Walker Township will be focusing around these 3 main counties: our Faulkner County, which is where Walker resides, Conway County to the left, and then north, Van Buren, which is a main hub of Damascus sits right on the border, right north of Twin Groves, Arkansas. And right here you'll see Walker Township in the top left of Faulkner, and its southern border, most importantly, is the line of the Cadron Creek. So, to start our first explanation, we look into rains and floodings, I like to call it. So, put yourself in their shoes here. You just moved in 1879, 1880, you're coming into Walker Township. Here, see, there we go. Arkansas was growing economically for farmers, but then it didn't. It was kind of a double-edged sword where the mass influx of migration along with other economic issues at the time led to a pretty big farming crisis going into the next decade or two. Most people need 160 acres and a large family to survive agriculturally. But in Arkansas, dwindling open land became the majority of what you could have. The average farmer had only 128 acres in Arkansas, and in Walker Township, among the black landowners, the crisis itself caused many of the migrants to purchase plots less than half of that. More so, the early migrant families were either over the age of 40 or had less than 3 people in their household, so even less sustainability agriculturally. On top of that, less than 10% of farms in Arkansas use fertilizer. Small farms couldn't do crop rotation as they needed to constantly use their fields to survive. And this combined with the cost hurt of the average farmer from the crisis. When all the trains came in, it was great at first, but then the manufactured good prices rose. And more importantly, a little weird sub-fact is, you ever walk into a store and buy something you don't need? Well, think of that happening to you for the first time, and it's on this train that's coming in constantly. And you're like, well, I don't need that fine china, but no one in my family's ever had it before, and I can have it. And so their own expenses ate them own pockets out. So, on top of this, you're already in a crisis, you're already struggling to survive, and then reports come in that there's terrible rain for days and days and days in late May, right along the Cadron Creek where you reside. Reports from this time said that the water rose up and washed away the topsoil, the crops, the housing, with accounts saying that the damage estimate was impossible to account for. Touching upon every farm that sat upon the Cadron, majority of the black inhabited landowners of Twin Groves. According to local reports, the washout severely impacted the bottomlands, and they thought they could never be repaired. And due to this, they all surmised that on top of this crisis you're in, your cotton harvest will fail this season. I believe that probably because this, especially just coming in this next year, and rain coming out of you, a lot of these early seekers of new opportunity thought, this isn't worth it. Let's get out of here while we can. In others, there are possibilities with reports that came in that could of drowning in floods as well with our small community we're working with. And those possibilities are the hopeful ones. Because, see, besides the flooding and the agricultural disposition they were in, the impact on the economy probably, like it always does in America, really impacted racial relations when things got tough. And that's why in the next year, we have the Lindsay case. On August 30th, 1883, Burl Lindsay, a black landowner of Walker Township, probably owned multiple plots of land as he was listed in the tax ledgers. Most likely this event happened right here on the map, just on the other side of the Cadron. A note was posted on his door one day, and it stated, I certify you, Mr. Niggerton, just as sure as you locate yourself her, death is your potion. The Cadron is the deadline. Your kind can't live on this side at all, and this is all your air gonna get, and I don't know what kind of next morning will be. Poetic. So, after that, there are two possibilities that would happen. After a white masking demonstration, a mob of men approached the homestead. One massacre opens Lindsay's door, and according to news reports, was met with 27 buckshot to the chest, dying instantly, after which Lindsay ran out while they got the body. Or, after the demonstration, Lindsay didn't open the door, and the mob shot bullet holes throughout his entire house, and while him and his kin were escaping, one of them, I guess, turned and shot a white massacre. Whatever the event, a white man died attacking a black man's house. And those undeniable facts is the only reason we have the case that we have. Because from here, the only reason this is known is because of that death. During the court case, this showed that dead lines were common in Arkansas and common in cases of racial cleansing, and it happened here in Walker Township. During the case, many of the massacres were white men from North Damascus on the Van Buren side. Some were identified as farmers, and one was an accomplice as a North Damascus magistrate, showing that some local officials supported this attack. While this report is only known and heavily documented since it created a Supreme Court case, many like it might have gone unknown or just not believed because there was no death of a white man involved. Other examples of cases like this, like in Faulkner County or Conway County, have a black man gunned down. But every time it happened, the reports would say, that man's an upstanding person in the community. He would never do that, and there goes the case. Or bullet holes run through a guy's plantation because he hires black people, and they'd say, those are lies. And that's it. No further investigation. So, upon this, even more cases of racial cleansing, white masking happened in Walker Township. Reported-wise, we know of at least one, which was 3 men in the same year, what they quoted as Ku Kluxing in the area. From this consensus, it was also reported that people were saying that because of the death of the white massacre, 10 black men had to die. And they reported that as a common consensus among the white settlers. Alone. This form of terrorization could happen more so in the next few decades, forcing many people like Burl Lindsay, as he did, left the area forever, not seen it anymore census data or traffic records reported. So, on top of that great event, the impartial conditions and outrageous motive terrorizing, the decline of an important boom town would cause even more issues, just things on top of each other in the 80s. And this is where I go into the subject of the fall of Pinnacle Springs. And Pinnacle Springs was a resort, kind of like Hot Springs, its own little hot spring town, found in 1881. But by 84, just a year or two after the Lindsay case, it became a hot seat of attraction in Walker Township throughout the entire central Arkansas populace. All over the state, well-off families and government officials would tour in the town during the summer. And those seeking opportunities permanently settled in the area on a hotel. One permanent resident even said there's thousands of acres of good up land worth $2.50 to $7 per acre. Thousands. The town's tourist status created wealth for the region and jobs for those in it. Before, you couldn't cross the Cadron. It was near impossible. You'd have to go all the way through Guy, Arkansas, take days and days and days to just get through, only when the weather was good. Now, path lines are being built across the Cadron Creek over and over it just to get over to the new Hot Springs town. But going to the later 80s, the town hit a decline, and while the path lines made it shorter, the supply to the town through Conway was still not worth going there. And according to Faulkner Facts and Fiddlings, the town by 1890 would go into a depression and only attracted what they called immorals. Don't know who that is, but that's what they said came into the town. But due to this, there was a mass exodus of Pinnacle Springs itself, with white settlers leaving that area, packing up what they could, and going westward to where Walker Township and the towns of it, like Damascus, Twin Groves, and Martinville, were located. So why does this matter? Well, the thing is, before this, Twin Groves community wasn't really well known or even documented, even on the most maps we had from them. Like seen with Dodson, the man talking about the land, the thousands of acres. It's possible that some of these acres was just owned by the black settlers who were using the Homestead Act to work upon this new land for the next 5 years once they moved in here. With this exodus, it's possible that black settlers saw the opportunity and sold their land and got out while they could, but it's also possible that some people with approved land tax or working on their land patents had their land taken out from under them. And why would I say that is mainly because of this next case that happened in 1890, the Crawford Cook case. So, all of a sudden, straight in the new decade, 1890, John Crawford, a black man who inhabited Walker Township, and a mob of 8 other black men would try to dispose a white man, William Cook, from the area. Ultimately, Cook would be shot by someone in that group, with one of them arrested by the local Constable Chase. Due to this, the person or Crawford would go on the run and be captured in Indian Territory 2 years later. And then after that, he was last noted, for some reason very suspiciously in the newspaper, they had a little column just for Crawford saying, hey, Crawford, the guy who was part of this white man attack, he's moving up to Van Buren. Van Buren, the place where the local magistrate already planned, a formal magistrate probably, hopefully at that time, helped an attack on Lindsay. So I just find it curious that they just put a little column out for him right there, a random man 2 years later. So, why does this matter? Why does this case matter? Well, that's because when arriving earlier in Walker Township, John Crawford filed for 80 acres of land in the area. It was canceled 4 years later. Then again, Crawford would file for 80 acres, but it was canceled 3 years later. And then the next year, it was given to the white man, Cook. The thing is, most land tax should give you about 5 years to work on it. You should be allowed to last 5 years to work and make it a successful land to live upon and get your title. And this wasn't the only case like this. Cornelius Smith, another black man who lived in Walker Township, patented in 1807. It was canceled in 91, and then white man Josiah Palmer would take the exact same piece of land, exact coordinates, exact acres, a year later. More residents could have had disputes over land like this, being pushed out or had their land sold. Patents were being canceled on wide in Walker Township by black settlers. At least 23 patents were placed by the black settlers in Walker, and almost half of them were canceled. 6 of those families that canceled would leave Walker Township from the 1880 census. So, upon that, another important fact is that a white man was shot over the deadline once again. Let's see. Sorry. And here, into the 1890s, a white man was shot. In Arkansas, the political landscape near Walker was also growing really violent between Democrats and Republicans over Democrat fears of black power on the vote. Assassination of key political figures like John Clayton, which a lady in the newspapers on trial said that that former constable that arrested the guy who shot Cook was the one who planned the assassination, surprisingly enough. And then the same constable being killed by a black man, and then that black man being lynched in Conway County. And then widespread rumors of a red riot right on the border of Walker Township in Conway County happening. This terrorization of racial violence probably rooted itself and just became more and more uproar, especially with the rumors of black mobs taking over towns like Morrilton and other areas of Conway County. In 1895, we would have the church in Damascus for Walker Township burned down. And in this ledger, it shows that that same school building was built at least 3 times in just not even a 100-year period, about a 60-year period. So, this question is still why? You ask why. Why did 11 entire families from 1880 leave from all records in Arkansas? Why did 5 move, and why did only 5 of the smallest families stay? Well, why did the Harrises, Ryans, Davises, Turnmans, Anderson, Barkers, Hughes, Ramberts, Gibsons, Martins, and Williams completely leave Arkansas? Well, maybe it's because they had a notion, and they knew the way behind that notion. And before everything ends, I do want to say, please support, if you have the time, the Ozark Foothills African American Museum in Twin Groves, Arkansas. It's a beautiful outdoor museum, and they're planning to add a whole bigger plot. And they also have an indoor museum and a public library right next to their community center. Thank you.